Trustees is still out of town,
Where'd he go?
somewhere in Asia.
Oh, good for him.
You ready?
I hope he's eating some good food.
All right.
When are you ready to put the note?
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Town of Fraser Board of Trustees meeting Wednesday, January 21st, 2026 at 6:01 PM. Can I have a roll call, please?
Katie Fisher.
Adam Quickman.
Peggy Smith. Julie White. Katie Souls.
And Brian Cirkvenik. Could I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes for December 3rd, 2025, amended, the minutes for January 7th, 2026, and a letter of support for safe, agile, fast, and efficient rail travel project?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Right. We will now move on to open forum. This is for business not on the agenda. If anybody would like to speak to the board, we will give you 3 minutes of time. You can approach the podium, or if you're online, raise your hand. Okay, looks like we don't have anybody, so we'll keep moving. All right, discussion and possible action regarding the treasurer's report. Lori, to present.
Good evening, Mayor, Trustees, Lori Waters, Finance Director. Good to see you all.
You
Hope
too,
you
right?
had a nice holiday break. So here we go, Treasurer's Report. These are gonna be reflecting December numbers, sort of. They're not completely closed out for December, but I was using them and they should be hopefully pretty close. So our statement of funds, the December, as you can see, our GF reserves. Yeah, we've been using those. The Butts property, we have St. Louis Landing going on. I am really excited for the bond funds to get here. That will enable your cash balances, general fund, the Colorado Trust, to start building back up so we can get ready for projects for public works for this summer. I think that's gonna be, very beneficial when we get that going. And let's see, we have the fund balances. General fund, yeah, was just about 9 million. 9,000,001, I round up. Restricted revenue, no big, huge surprises there, as far as the fund balances, except for, yeah, we went kind of down on that general fund, but, we'll make it back up, and we also have grants to, hello.
Easy to do.
Makes more sense when they see the picture.
I love it.
Also, the other one was the Cousins Ranch. It looks really high as far as the cash allocations. That's the bike park. And so we will be, we're looking into getting the grant reimbursements for the bike park going. There's let's see, the CDOT grant. There's a CDOT grant. There's the ORLT county grant. There's the Grand County Conservation Trust Fund. Some funds were allocated for us. Headwater Trails has been making collections. We need to contact them to see if they've received cash donations. They were taking donations. And then we are investigating getting the GOCO grant. We might be able to get a 75% reimbursement sooner rather than waiting all the way till about June to get 100% reimbursement. So we're looking into that and we're going to get some reimbursements going. Also, there's recent grant submittals. I'm doing all the January grant submittals for St. Louis Landing. Strong communities, we got that one in on time. I'm just waiting to see if I get a passing grade from DOLA. And then we have the More Housing Now grant that'll be coming up that I'll be preparing to get submitted for next week. And we'll also have the Main Street Live and Public Works grants that will be helping to offset the expenditures. So working on those.
Great.
Sales tax revenue. If you can see the little black dot that's right below the purpley line there, January revenue is the December collection. This is November taxes. November 2025 was $18,890 lower than 2024. That was a 3.93% decrease. I would have hoped that we maintained and maybe did a little better than the year before, but considering all things considering with what's going on, I was not too horrified at a 3.93% decrease. The thing that I'm anticipating is when we receive the December sales tax report, which won't be until about February 6th. That one I'm kind of got my fingers crossed that we're going to come out okay on that one. I am hearing not such good news out of the ski area. This is an unprecedented winter. Never been through one like this. Ski area numbers are down. They've only got about 25% of the terrain open. Breckenridge isn't much better. They're at about 30% of their terrain. So all of us ski areas are going to be having a bumpy ride for the rest of the season, I'm afraid. I'm hoping, I mean, we do have snow coming in this weekend, which will hopefully help. But, you know, whether we get enough to really, I don't think we're going to be able to regain everything that has been lost in skier numbers this year. So worried about that, but, you know, few little hopeful hints here and there. Now here's the surprise, your short-term sales tax revenue. If you look at November, it's that big tall blue one that stands up higher than the other years. This is again the November sales tax collection. And short-term rentals were 13% of your sales tax revenue, and it increased 17.7% over November 2024. I don't, yeah,
People use
short-term rentals are rocking. I don't know, I can't explain it, but they are doing well. And we've got a pretty good amount of them now and more are coming online. Everybody's been getting their certifications re-upped. And so they've been doing great. Remote sellers were a little higher. They did all right. They were still about 6% of revenue. They were about $3,465 higher than 2024. That was about a 13.05% increase. So people were doing some online shopping, maybe looking for those bargains. Then the expenditures, the one that's going to really kind of jump out at you is going to be the Cozen's Ranch open space. The bike park is the driver of those expenditures, the $977,000 that's sitting there that goes, surprise, that's 175% higher than budgeted. That's why I listed off all those grants we're going to be going after real quick. Everything else is pretty muchly in line. The general fund, we're coming in pretty darn close. Again, these are December numbers. I am not completely closed on December. There will be reconciliations, there will be accruals, there will be all kinds of things happening, but this is just pretty rough. They might change somewhat. Restricted revenue funds, and this is also not showing the revenue that we just received. That's one of the accruals I'll be making, is the sales tax revenue will be getting put back into December 2025 through the magic of accounting. And then everything else is tracking pretty normally. Like I said, the only one that was the big wow was the bike park, and we're going to get that taken care of. Hopefully, very soon. Any questions?
Laura, you mentioned that we have more short-term rental licenses. Do you know how many more we've gone up, or
Wendy?
like a handful?
Was it proportional to the increase in?
75, and we are, once everybody gets their certificates of compliance, which they've already paid for their
Mhm.
permit, it will be 302.
Well,
Okay,
so you're
thanks.
I'm sorry, you said 250 to 300, basically? 275, so that's 8% growth versus 17 on the income.
Any other questions for Lori? Well, thanks, Lori.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Lorraine.
All right,
Yeah.
Safeway Riverbend,
Safeway
Sarah
Riverbend.
Catanzarite and John Uritt.
Board of Trustees, Mayor Sarah Catanzarite, Assistant Town Manager for the Town of Fraser. I'm going to hand this over to John Ewert from CPW, but just wanted to provide a bit of context. For a number of years now, the town has been looking at what is affectionately known as the Safeway Bend and the Fraser River, and a method to ensure that it would not be an issue in terms of potential flooding in a year of particularly high flow. So a number of different projects have kind of been looked at over the years. In meeting with John last fall, he provided recommendations for how he believes the town should approach this, and suggested that perhaps learning by doing might be able to help us along with this project. So we wanted to have John come and just kind of present what he would recommend in terms of an approach and get direction from the board if this is something that we would like to proceed with. And if so, we can then look into how we'd go about actually accomplishing this and sources of funding. But there are a couple of different sources that have been identified to potentially help with this work.
Thanks, and thanks for having me. As Sarah said, my name is John Ewert. I'm the local fisheries biologist with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So this Fraser, this Safeway Bend on the Fraser has been a point of a bit of concern over the years, and rightly so. There's not a lot of room for the river to do much moving. Luckily, it hasn't really, and so this is the bend that we're talking about. I wonder. There we go. I wanted to get to the 2D view. So, most folks are familiar with this spot if you've ever taken a little walk along the river right there. Um, so the concern is that the river could move. I mean, a river like the Fraser tends to, these bends tend to accentuate over time and migrate outward, on an outward bend like that. And if there was no development and it was just wilderness here in the Fraser River Valley, this river would just go through this evolution of moving around, snaking back and forth over decades and hundreds of years. But of course, we don't have that luxury, in this situation to let the river do much moving. So, the one place that there has been some change in the past decade or so is the downstream end. If you can see where my pointer is right there, this has started to eat away a little bit more with some of the higher runoff years. It doesn't move every year, but it has moved a little bit over the last decade, and we have some eddy action starting to build right there. And of course, the problem there that we don't really want to occur is that, it could cut off this bend. There's a beautiful pool right here that is just full of fish and is a fantastic habitat feature. So we don't really want to lose river mileage here and have the river cut off. There wouldn't be a big infrastructural risk to seeing it do that. This bank is it's what we call void filled riprap. It has had riprap added to it to stabilize it at some point in the past. And void filled riprap, meaning that it's angular rock, but it's filled with topsoil in between the angular rocks. So the spaces in between the rock are filled in. But so we would suggest that the best course of action here is the real risk is this little section of the bend is the one section that does not have a lot of protection. That riprap is back in there, but you can see when you stand out there and look at it, it looks a little bit exposed. This bench right in here. So one thing we talked in our work session a little while ago about how important the willows and the willow banks are on the Fraser River, and this bank in particular is a perfect example of that. This bank is very, very stable and has not moved at all, and is undercut and has that highly complex vertical structure with some overhang to it. It's excellent fish habitat. The fish just come pouring out of there. It's full of fish. And so it's that mature willow stand that protects that bank there. And that's why the river is not particularly threatening the infrastructure beyond this mature willow stand, because that is your buffer there. And so one of the things that would be great to do is to do some willow transplanting onto this grassy bench here, to help stabilize that bank and start to provide more of that complex root structure that holds these banks in place. And then, so the other interesting thing is there's a stand of more mature cottonwoods right here, and those cottonwoods have extended underneath the trail, and there are more than a dozen new cottonwoods on the river side of the trail here that were not there, say 6, 8 years ago. Those cottonwoods were not there. And so with cottonwoods colonizing over closer to the water's edge, that in itself is a good indicator of stability, and that is a benefit that's benefiting the riverbank there. And so then the other element is to deal with this eddy that's starting to form here and maybe recontour this riverbank. And the way to do that, so this on the other side is one of these beach areas that we call a point bar. And point bars serve a really important function especially at high flows with rivers, because they, in their natural state and when they're functioning just right, which this one does function really well, they have a gradient to them that allows the river to spread out this way, away from that outside bend. And so probably doing a little bit of shaving down of the elevation of that point bar to enhance that relief valve effect of allowing the river to spread out in that direction away from the bend instead of focusing so much energy on the outside of the bend. That would be a benefit. And then what could be done is just a simple rebuilding of this, where this bank is eaten away, to just recontour this bend and get that line of the bank back. And the best way to do that in terms of a fish habitat standpoint is to get some wood, get some trees, and lay them in there kind of like a lattice work, or it kind of looks like a truss. It's what we call a tow wood installation. You could use tow wood or not use tow wood. You could just do this with what we call a cobble tow, but essentially fill it in there and then backfill with cobble and topsoil, and take some of the mature willow that's over here on the point bar. That mature willow isn't serving a lot of function in terms of the geomorphology of the river and the hydraulics of it, but you could scoop up some of these willows and move them across and plop them right into the space behind this new bank line and backfill it with topsoil and make sure those willows are planted at just the right elevation. Willows need their root systems to be in the water, but you could basically instantaneously through mature willow transplanting from one side to the other, you could essentially have an instantaneous bank there and just make sure those willows get going and that should forestall any further tendency of the river to move outward. Another thing that could be done, this point bar has what we call a cutoff channel that you can't see because the vegetation is real thick. But when point bars are working just right, the elevation across here, there is a secondary channel back here through these willows that's actually a lower elevation than the highest elevation of this point bar. And that also serves as kind of a relief valve where once the river is up at runoff stage and getting higher and higher, then it starts taking water through this secondary channel behind the point bar. And that's a real benefit because if water is flowing behind the point bar here, you're taking pressure off of that outside bend when that happens. So some adjustment of the elevation where, you know, that cutoff channel could potentially take water at a little bit lower flow than it does now to enhance that cutoff channel effect. But then when the river drops back down to base flows, it's still dropping into the active channel that we're seeing here. And so that cutoff channel is not carrying water all the time. It's just serving that relief valve function, at high runoff. And so I am not a river engineer and I am not a designer of these types of projects, but I've been involved in a lot of projects and I know I'm very familiar with these approaches. And so what it would involve is this is a relatively small project. This is not a heavy-handed type of a thing. This would be in the tens of thousands of dollars, not in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it would be a relatively small, you could accomplish this whole thing with a mini excavator accessing the river off of the trail right into here. Since we're rebuilding this bank right here, that would be your access with a mini excavator. Do those adjustments and back out and reclaim as you go with the mini excavator. Pretty simple, straightforward project. I know there has been some discussion of more heavy-handed, more engineered solutions of moving the entire river over. That I guess that's many hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that and lots of engineering work and what we're suggesting is a more bioengineered approach that's a little softer touch to do first and see if that gets us all comfortable with the status of that bend there without saying, I mean, maybe a more heavily engineered approach is necessary down the line in the future, but this doesn't preclude that as a future possible approach. It's just a lighter touch first step, to get that bend a little more stabilized. So I think that's the concept. And so Grant, what we're wanting to do is to get Grant County Learning by Doing, which I'm also a member of that group, but to take this on as one of their projects and to seek some grant funding opportunities and get a firm under contract that does this type of work and accomplish that project. Did I cover everything? Do you have any questions about that?
I like it for the fish habitat and what it's going to do to keep the quality of the river there. Keeping the water out of Safeway, do we need to look at increasing the elevation of the riprap right on that corner? Where,
I mean, the riprap that was placed some time ago, it's a pretty high terrace. It's pretty robust. It's when the river has moved, it's not really that angular void filled riprap is not the material that's moving. It's more the less protected topsoil bench that's closer to the river's edge than that the riprap is kind of set back from the river's edge as you see it here, and especially in this area, it's quite a bit of elevation of that stuff that the trail is on top of. And so I wouldn't see that as being necessary.
Good.
So
the only potential concern that I just wanted to point out that we discussed there on the site was just the visibility of the window of the river from that corner that you're seeing right there. Sarah, can you drop that little guy right there on the corner? The little guy, the little icon there.
Oh, so it's
is
more of
that
a,
you?
oh,
Are
like
you
the
John?
street view version?
Sorry, I thought Sarah was driving.
Oh, that's all right. I figured out what you're talking
Right there on
about.
that blue line. There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's
And then just
perfect.
kind of drag that over.
Yeah.
So the only thing I just want to make sure that, let you guys make a decision on is, there's the discussion about planting willows along that corner. We talked about some other options of stabilizing that bank as well. But just want to make sure that bring that to your attention, that if we were to replant willows and use that stabilizing method, you would be blocking that window, which I think has value to it. And John, I think you had talked about a couple other options for stabilizing that bank that may not include willows.
Yeah, and what were we talking about? Oh, there, and so this is incidental to that. Sorry, this street view, this shows that. So this is at really high flow, and you can see that cutoff channel working. You can see water behind that point bar. That's doing exactly what we were talking about there. What other? Oh, so you could do some what they call a log revetment, where you basically armor the bank with some log installations. The problem is everything that's not living willow is going to be a downgrade for the river. It's not, it's, there is no substitute for a living riverbank to stabilize things. I will say that willows can live with a haircut. So it's not an entire, once those willows are established in there, it doesn't have to be a wall like you see more of kind of off to the right. It can, be a little more trimmed. So, that's shorter than a person, and still be performing the functions that we want them to.
How about Arctic willows? So smaller, they use them in planters, and the ones that I've seen usually don't grow more than about 3 feet tall. I don't know if they would, if the
Yeah,
root
they're-
system would be good enough or not.
There are species around that don't grow very tall. The best thing to do is to pull from the material we have right there. That's going to be the most cost effective. And there may be some of those species. I'm not a willow expert.
so.
Willows are surprisingly hard to identify down to the species and know which is which. I mean, we're probably looking at 3 or 4 different species of willow in this picture alone. But that's what the contractor who does these types of projects would be able to, if that's if that's within the scope of work, that's what we would be looking for.
I like the willows. I think if you go into Safeway to see nature, you're living in the wrong place.
Right, there's
Yeah,
other
you're not
places
wrong.
to take a look, see.
Invitation.
Well, and it's the stabilization of that corner, right? It's pretty,
Yeah.
it's huge. That's takes a lot of pressure, a lot of water. It's it.
I like the willow idea.
You can also see these cottonwood, the new cottonwoods are hidden behind this pine tree, but you can see the cottonwood stand that I was talking about. I didn't realize the street view photo is so good. That's a really good.
It looks like it's high flow too. That's nice.
It's about
Yeah.
as high as it gets.
Yeah.
Could you do cottonwoods instead of willows? What's the benefit of each?
Cottonwoods it's gonna be, I mean, in a perfect world, you would do both and you would have room to do both. And just it's maximally functioning riparian vegetation community like the Fraser would have if it had all the room to work with. You'd have willows first. Willows are what naturally occur right next to the water with their root systems down in the water, and cottonwood are like traditionally or their natural place to occur is like one level above that or one level behind that. These cottonwoods are growing there, but they're they're raised in elevation a bit off of the river more than the bench over here that we're talking about. So you'd be planting cottonwoods closer to the river than where they would naturally be found, I guess is
Gotcha.
the answer to that question. Yeah. And it might be too wet for them
Yeah.
to do well. Willows need their feet in water, and cottonwoods are a little bit less, so they need a little more elevation away from the water, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool.
You know, I think we could move some willows in there, and maybe not just a giant scoop and massive one. They are individual
Mhm.
plants until they really take off, so that there's a, you know, a couple, 2 or 3 feet between them. Sooner or later, they're gonna want to fill in, but
Yeah. Get some gaps in there so you can
that's what
see.
it takes to stabilize that bank. Keep that fish habitat.
Andy Miller, you wanted to come up?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Don.
you.
Really good.
So Andy Miller, Fraser, and Planning Commission and President of the Upper Colorado Watershed Environment Team. And as you guys know, we've brought this project forward on an engineering basis, to project to get engineering funded for this river bend, both to the OLRT fund and to the Windy Gap Environmental Fund. And we were turned down by Windy Gap Environmental Fund because Northern didn't believe that. That board, again, to remind, is 3 members from UC Wet and 3 members from Northern. And the point of the fund is to improve water quality at Windy Gap Reservoir. And our friends from Northern felt that disaster preparedness is not a valid use of the fund. So in other words, our point was, if there were a disaster here, a flood, then it would carry a lot of debris down into Windy Gap Reservoir. So they didn't buy that argument. OLRT asked that we work with the town and look at the river, this whole river reach, which I'm really glad you guys are doing. My concern with this plan, which is probably a really good one, is that I really hope that you might ask Merrick, your town engineer, to look at this. Because our approach was to spend $160,000 on an engineering plan. And the reason for that is this is a FEMA floodplain. The reason for that is that we've got Safeway on the other side of this bank. And things will probably hold up just fine. This plan will probably work okay, but we're seeing a lot of probablys get blown out of the water nationwide. It's out of, well, that's probably not a good term, but we could have a flood event in the Fraser Valley. We've got a string of in-stream ponds, and the Lions Club pond aren't in-stream, but they're in the floodplain. We could have a disaster here that could take this bank out. And this bank is doing well. John's exactly right. The cottonwoods are growing at the base of it. A lot of things are going really well with this, and this would probably improve everything. But at least I would suggest that you ask Merrick to look at this and say, do we need to do a more robust engineering review of this project? If Safeway wasn't on the other side of this bank and we were out in the middle of the wilderness, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But last I knew, Safeway was 60% of our town income. So we can't afford to have that store have 4 feet of water in it, and we lose that income source for however long it would take to get the store back again. So I just a simple review from Merrick, just to make sure that you guys are on the right track, and that we were not correct in saying that we needed a really robust engineering study done of this. So we may be way off base. I don't know. So at least it's at least worth that, I think. And then the only other thing with the street view, we continue to try and get away for the snowcats to get through here and continue on up the Fraser River Trail. And if you go out there in the wintertime, the snowcats are now going around the Changes Shopping Center. It's really hard for a user to figure out what the heck to do here. And John's exactly right. We originally thought maybe we could get a little more width between the driveway and the river, but we can't. And that stand of willows and that little piece of river is so key. But maybe we could look at narrowing that street to a one-way, or one way at a time. It can't be one way because it's the only way back there, but it could be one way at a time. Maybe we could take, it's literally 2 or 3 feet would get the 6 feet that we need to get the snowcat through there in the wintertime. Because the other thing you have to do is take your skis off, walk around the parking lot, get your skis back on again, and take off down the trail again. And there's been a rock in the way of this forever by the gate to the Winter Park sanitation, the Winter Park Ranch sanitation well house over there. So straighten out that gate situation too, to keep vehicles from getting back there, because we need to. But anyway, let's look hard at how we can't make this trail just be continuous through this stretch. So, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Board, any questions for John or Andy or discussion?
This sounds maybe a little weird, but does Safeway have any responsibility in any of this? I mean, how did they get to build that close to the river?
Them
In the
were
first
the
place.
good old days.
I mean, in the good old days, wasn't there like, hey, if this ever happens, I mean, is there anything from Safeway that, do they hold any responsibility?
I doubt it.
There's good funding available for this type of work. There's good nonprofits here in the county that can do this type of work.
Hmm.
And that's what they want to bring back, is following the direction from the board. Look at this more seriously. There's some grants that we can apply for as well that are here in the county. And like John said, it's not anything more than really a mini X
Right.
doing a lot of this work. So
I'm
not,
thinking of a bigger picture, like if it goes crazy,
Mm.
if it floods or something, you know?
I'm sure it affects their insurance to some degree maybe, but
Right. Just curious.
Yeah. So there's no action item, but is it essentially that we want to
We need to move ahead
see
with that.
people move forward and see if we can apply for grants for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think just a motion, if you feel comfortable with John's approach and want to move in that direction, then we'll continue to pursue looking at this.
You guys good
I
with?
think Andy's idea of having Eric take a look at it, especially in that bend, is a good idea. To see if we do need to come up somehow or do something else to help protect Safeway.
would you like to see if there's see what plan, like the more specified plan that comes back for this project, and have Merrick review that? That
Okay.
makes sense.
Until the time comes.
I mean, he's a professional.
Well, the only thing is that, you know, John's saying this is a couple $10,000, $20,000 project. It might cost that much just for Eric to review it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Only
Greg
if it's like
Steed,
Merrick.
America. I practice in the water and wastewater utility sector, but I do have experience with river restoration and river stabilization. The light touch aspect is certainly one approach, and the mini X and the bank stabilization. The next level of engineering approach would be taking a hard look at what you'd call rock veins, which is an angled kind of rock pier out into the stream flow on that outside bank, what you'd call the outside bank of your bend, where you have the most friction, the most erosion happening. You put these rock veins in. It's not as light a touch, but it moves the stress points of the water flow further away from the bank. It actually deposits sediment on that outside bank. So you're building bank up, and it's cutting away at the point bar, which would be the inside of the bend. So those features would naturally stabilize the bank and move the stress points of the water flow further away from the bank, so that you'd naturally eat into the point bar, move your bend away from your critical infrastructure. Again, an engineered solution, boulders in the river, potentially a cross vein. You've seen those up and down the river, that would hold the center of flow in the river to its current path instead of letting it migrate towards the bank. So all those features could be implemented. Again, light touch versus a little bit heavy touch, but I think on a longer term basis, those rock veins would serve the purpose that we want for a longer period of time. And ultimately, those end up getting buried in sediment, and you have a bank on that side, and you never see them again. But they also stay permanently buried and protect in really high flow condition.
So they're on river left, as you're coming down the river left.
Yes, they'd be on
on
the
that
outside
They,
bend, outside bank of the bend.
But not all the way to the edge, because it has a gap. Is that correct?
Not sure. If I-
outside the bend.
Like, it's not like a dam on the far
No.
bank. water can still flow over it.
Yes,
and-
it's angled so that at the bank, it's a taller rock boulder structure, and then it's basically a finger of rocks out into the river, sloped down so that at the middle of the river, the water's running over the rocks, but it's creating eddies behind and in front to collect sediment and move the thalweg, which is the deepest part of the channel, move that further away from the bank.
So how much does an operation like that ballpark kind of?
If you're just looking at one specific bend in the river, usually you'll want to look upstream and downstream a particular distance so that, you know, if you do something in one point, it affects upstream and downstream. The kind of study that you might be looking at there might be a $20,000 or $25,000 study just to come up with, here's all the concepts that we could look at and the size of these rock veins or J hooks. Sometimes they'll put a little hook on the end of them and they call it a J hook. Certainly worth considering. I'm not in our surface water group, but I can bring some of those people up to, you know.
So when we
you-
talk about funding and grants, is there, if we went to the bigger picture, is there funding available or is that's a pipe dream?
I would prefer,
Yeah.
there's a lot more funding for infrastructure.
We have sought funding from OLRT and Windy Gap, as Andy was referencing previously, for, I believe, a similar approach to what was just
Thank you.
described. Is that correct, Andy? Yeah. And we have not been successful thus far in getting funding for this particular project with that approach from the local entities that work in this area.
I'd like to disclose that first, I'm on the Learning by Doing Project Subcommittee. Secondly, I do think that, you know, for the $25,000, we can probably complete that first approach. And if we find that's inadequate, it seems like the corner is healing itself to a degree. Maybe it doesn't have the full capacity to get to where it needs to be and it needs some assistance, but I think it's worth trying the less evasive approach first. I think it will have less impact on our fishery, you know, for a shorter duration of time. I think just overall, it's probably worth trying that approach first, and then we know there's other alternatives if that doesn't work, and we know we can pursue these other more evasive approaches.
Sounds good to me.
Sames. Great.
Okay. Thank you, Johnny. We're
Bravo, that's just
All right. Do you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I go with the light touch approach, I guess is what we'll call it. And then see where we stand after we monitor that. And
Sounds good. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
I,
All opposed? And abstain?
that's you.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, Thank you.
All right. Thanks, thanks everybody. Okay, next up is the Fraser Connectivity Study. Michael and Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael Brack, Fraser Town Manager. This Fraser Connectivity Study is something we've been looking at for a couple of years now. And really, this proposal is just really looking to address the interests that have risen from the development and the rezoning of our downtown areas off the Riverwalk District, off Clayton Court, between Clayton Court areas, the Victoria Village areas, St. Louis Landing areas, with the construction of Edna Tucker Way through St. Louis Landing, that's going to provide the connectivity from County Road 8 to Park Avenue, and really looking at how we can promote better traffic connectivity off of Highway 40, specifically east of Highway 40, where traffic impacts for people coming out to on County Road 8 onto Highway 40, coming on from Park Avenue onto Highway 40, have some better traffic circulation options. So I hand it to Paul here to kind of show what options we're looking at. And this is just looking just to kick off some study from our traffic engineer that we're going to be working with on this.
So Mayor, Board of Trustees, we also have Jeff Plank with Kimley Horn online. If you have any questions about the proposal, but the proposal from Kimley Horn is to perform a connectivity study downtown, like Michael mentioned, around the Sun River Drive area and Wapiti to South Wapiti. As he mentioned, it's the potential to open possible public rights of way to improve traffic circulation to and from core residential and commercial areas within the downtown area. It has been discussed in the past. I think over the last 2 years, we've talked about this. Staff recommends proceeding with the proposal to study the ability to open a right of way along Sun River and to evaluate the possible connection of Wapiti to South Wapiti for traffic circulation. The Wapiti to South Wapiti would be opening up that kind of, if you drive down South Wapiti, you dead end at the dirt road. It would be the dirt road to the treatment plant. Problem is on Wapiti Drive, there's a driveway in the way, so it would require some right of way acquisition. But the idea is to let Kimley Horn take a look at that, their traffic team, Jeff and his other associates there to look at what we can do there. We've kind of looked at Sun River a lot. It's really narrow. I don't think when they look at it, Sun River is really only wide enough for one way. So it would have to be kind of southbound only. Whereas if we did a Wapiti to South Wapiti, I envision that being a full two-way access point from Ptarmigan all the way to County Road 804.
Paul,
So,
could you tell me where South Wapiti is?
the light at Safeway, turn left at the Holiday Inn,
Uh-huh.
and then go across the river, that's South Wapiti back to, like, if you went to the daycare, you'd be on South Wapiti.
Yeah.
Wapiti Meadows.
Oh, Wapiti Meadows parking lot.
Yeah, yeah.
That's, okay.
So it would
But
be
you
the,
don't have
the
to-
Or the
main
road to the
road
right of
before
it.
you make a left into the parking lot. It's the road that dead ends kind of right on the town line between Fraser and.
So that little stretch, like
Below
the LZ, we call it the loading landing zone when you're going up to Wapiti. Like that, like little dirt path, that's called
Mhm.
South Wapiti. That
Well,
like
if you
100 yards.
get past the dirt section, when you get back to the paved, that's South Wapiti.
Oh, where it bends, then it turns to South Wapiti as it goes up past like Ptarmigan.
No,
Well,
no,
no.
come to the light at Safeway. So instead of turning right into Safeway, turn left and then follow the road to the
Whoa.
left. That's South
Okay.
Wapiti.
Okay, I got
So
you.
it'd be connecting South Wapiti
Okay.
to the first
I got
switch
you.
back on
I wasn't
Wapiti.
sure. I never knew that was called South Wapiti. Thank you.
So, Jeff, did you have anything to add from
Versus-
Kimley Horn?
That's where the water treatment.
Oh,
I went there.
okay.
No, I think you summarized it well, Paul. There are some constraints and we got to get the, survey and property limits and right away and, see what we can do to, feasibly, make additional through connectivity. We do feel like that Wapiti would be the optimal connection or through connectivity. Obviously with the power lines there and the existing residents, we're gonna have to, look at it closer and see what we can do.
Yeah, and just during this process, we'll be notifying everyone who's living in these areas along Sun River Drive and the South Wapiti connection to Wapiti, just to notify those homeowners of what is being looked at. So then when we actually have some preliminary work done on this and some recommendations from Kimley Horn, to invite them to those conversations to evaluate impacts versus traffic enhancements and circulation, those trade-offs essentially.
And what about between Quail and Wapiti Meadows?
We
was
can
that-
we can add that to the scope if you'd like to.
No.
We originally looked at that and saw that, maybe it's worth looking at. You do have high density parking along that entire stretch that goes for several hundreds of feet.
Yeah.
On both
I think
sides?
it's a good access point, I guess.
So we removed that from the scope, but if the board,
No,
yeah, we can always revisit that too.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, we had concerns with the head-in parking, that if you make that public and you have cars going through there at 25 miles per hour, that would be a concern. You would want to have speed bumps considered, raised crosswalk. But even then, ideally, you would not want that parking fronting with that being a through public street.
Yeah, with this too, we're also gonna be evaluating any type of drainage issues that could be arising from it, how to better address traffic calming through these different areas. And if any of these areas are being used for snow storage, how we can help offset those impacts.
So has there been any discussion of including the intersection of County Road 8 and Highway 40 in this? Because it seems like these are residential areas that are going to be repurposed for a heavier use. And to me, it seems like the logical mitigation for what could be all of County Road 8 going through a neighborhood is a stoplight at the highway that would give people an option to make a left turn onto the highway and not go through neighborhoods. You know, I think, so I don't think doing one in isolation. I think you have to do both to provide more options and diffuse all that traffic flow.
I would just add to that, so we already paid MAD to do a traffic study at that intersection. CDOT said it wasn't needed at this time. And then CDOT with their Highway 40 project also does not show that that a traffic light is needed County Road 8 at this time. I don't think it wouldn't happen in the future, but right now,
Well, I guess I wasn't looking at it as being justified by that, the case of need on that side. I was thinking of what we're going to do to those neighborhoods if we send every car down to the stoplight in front of Safeway through those neighborhoods. That putting a stoplight there would give people a legitimate way onto the highway and not going through those residential streets. I mean, I live on Eisenhower. I know we're over trafficked on that road, and I see the same things happening on these residential streets over there. And by having a traffic light, I think it gives a legitimate option to not cut through the neighborhoods and get to this stoplight. If that makes sense.
I think we can continue to look at that. I know in our meetings with CDOT, there's a certain threshold that has to be met before they will authorize a traffic signal. And I don't think we're there for 30 years in their study.
Is that with St. Louis Landing? Dang.
So I think there's some hoops we can try and jump through with CDOT to maybe accomplish that with their funding where they're already going to be doing the project. I think it's phase 2 of the project retouches that area, but
I'm just
they haven't
interested.
been very receptive to a traffic light there in the last 2 meetings.
Yeah, I just want to mitigate the impacts to those
I
neighborhoods.
understand.
And I agree
I
that
think most people would like to
Mercy
stop right
Drive and
there.
stuff, that's just
I
not.
think their concern is backing traffic up
Yeah.
farther up into Tabernash than we already have. So they're looking at a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I know I don't know when our next meeting with CDOT is. But
Well, and keep in mind, phase 1 stops at Clayton Avenue. It's phase 2 that goes further north. So the things could still change.
there's a lot to change there.
And they asked for a lot of advocacy too from Fraser, and so we've been able to provide a lot of input on what we think would make sense for these different things. And I think we've always tried to promote a stoplight at County Road 8 just to better provide for that southern access from County Road 8 to Highway 40.
And if that's the board's desire, is I could have Kimley redo the proposal to include looking at that intersection if that's what you would like. But the proposal now is for these two.
I think we could spend the
connects.
money on 20-mile-per-hour speed limit signs, and if people have to go slower through the neighborhoods, if it's gonna take them the same amount of time to to get on Highway 40 and make a left-hand turn, and they could go faster, then they will. So I think just that by keeping those lower speed limits through those residential neighborhoods, as with Old Town, I think, are we 20 or 25?
It's 35 over the tracks, but it's 20 on the roads.
Okay,
I'm just.
yeah.
Yeah, you
Gotta keep your speed up for that hill.
So good.
Keep your speed up for that hill, so anyway, yeah,
All right.
that's, like, I think that's it.
Would we like to proceed with the proposal or?
Yeah, I'm down with the
Yes.
Southwood PD now that I know where it's.
Yeah.
I always thought that was called
I-
Mercy Drive.
Yeah, I think we're obligated to at least do the study and the research to find out what's
Yeah.
gonna take and what we can do and.
I
And if nothing else for safety, if something does happen and things go bad on 40 and there's a big storm and they can't get up the Metteridge Hill,
Yeah.
then people are gonna need a way to get.
No, we definitely need some redundancy. I was just worried about the impacts and,
Yeah.
I mean, my first place here was on Lower Wapiti in the 90s, and I remember walking the South Wapiti 100 times and being like, why is this not a road?
I think
I mean, that was 30 years ago.
so currently not a road because it's currently, it's owned by Wapiti Meadows. And we have an easement to get to the
Right.
treatment plant. It's not a right of way as in traffic. So.
Gotcha.
Good study.
Okay,
I like
Do we need
it.
to take any public comment
great.
on this?
Do we need? I mean, we can take public comment if the board would like. I mean, this is just to approve the study. It's not to make any decisions.
No decision, it's just a study to see if it's even feasible to do either one.
Right.
Anybody out there jonesing to comment? Okay, good.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
We do.
I'll make a motion to approve the Fraser connectivity study.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Goes everybody? Any opposed? Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Next up.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have resolution 2026-0105, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Winter Park regarding building division services. Garrett and James Shockey.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Garrett Scott, Fraser Town Planner. We also have James Shockey on the Zoom call this evening, Winter Park Community Development Director. So the matter before you is Resolution 2026-0105, which would approve a new IGA with the town of Winter Park for building division services. So I don't have a formal presentation, but just wanted to talk through this briefly. Fraser and Winter Park have had a shared building division for approximately 20 years. Granby was part of that shared building division in 2010. As part of that IGA, any party is allowed to terminate and leave that shared building division. Granby chose to do that October of last year, and so they will no longer be part of our shared building division as of the end of this month. So because Granby is leaving, we simply need a new IGA just between Fraser and the town of Winter Park to maintain our current relationship and our current building division services. Our town attorney has reviewed the IGA that is before you all and has no concerns given that the terms remain the same, except for the removal of Granby from the agreement. And this IGA was brought to Winter Park's Town Council just yesterday, and I believe it was approved, but James can confirm that. So therefore, staff recommends that the board approve this IGA this evening, but certainly we stand for any questions you may all have.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. Let's
Yeah.
make a motion.
No, yeah, no brainer.
For Katie?
Okay.
Did James have a big speech that he wanted to add?
Does James want to add anything before we?
Hi, James Shockey, Community Development Director for Winter Park. No, I don't have anything to add. I think Garrett did a good job.
Okay.
Thanks, James.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2026-0105, the intergovernmental agreement with the town of Winter Park for our building division services.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks.
Thank you, board, and thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
It's quicker than
Thanks,
15
thank you.
minutes. Okay, resolution 2026-0104, contract with Big Valley Construction for the pre-construction design of the Public Works Facility. Paul.
Mayor, Board of Trustees, good evening. The matter before you tonight is Resolution 2026-0104, authorizing the town manager to enter into a contract with Big Valley Construction that includes milestones for pre-construction design of the new Public Works Facility in order to arrive at a guaranteed maximum price and a subsequent milestone for construction of the Public Works Facility per the submitted fees that is subject to town board approval of construction financing. Previously, Resolution 2025-1103 approved proceeding to 100% design and issuance of a request for qualifications to bring on a construction manager, general contractor to ensure constructability of final plans under a guaranteed maximum price arrangement. So based on the open RFQ bid process, Big Valley Construction has submitted the best qualified bid to complete the work out of 6 submittals and 3 shortlist interviews. Are there any questions? We also have Big Valley representation in the audience if there's any questions there.
I just have a question, like who gets to decide that's the best bid?
So it was town staff, Merrick staff, and our architect D2C staff who reviewed the proposals and the fees and
Okay,
called references.
thank you.
I have a question. On the section where they were able to cut 2 million to bring it more in line with the budget that we need, eliminating the HVAC dust collector. So where is that collector? Is it, what, tell me where that
So
HVAC
that would be
collector is.
in the, there's a room set aside for construction. So for example, when street staff is building the art easels and things for events, so
Okay.
that it would collect dust so that what they're cutting.
Mhm.
One of the things is to not plumb in an entire HVAC dust collection system and just use a portable system up until the point we grow to the size that we would need something that's constantly, so that system is connected to each individual piece of equipment. The portable one you bring over has a hood and you're cutting and it's bringing
Summer, so.
Gotcha.
You're
sawdust.
outside.
So it's not a whole building, it ties into different pieces of equipment?
Yeah.
Interesting. So long as we've got something to protect the air quality for our staff,
So I mean,
whatever that looks like.
currently they do everything outside. So
Okay.
this would give them a space to do it inside with a portable dust collection system that they would move to the piece of equipment they were using at the time.
Okay. All right, because that was significant.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
That's
things
a
that, you know,
big
again,
operation.
the original price we had from Big Valley was at 30% plans.
Mhm.
We're coming up on the DD plans, I think are due at the end of February. And then there'll be another estimate, and then we go to the 90% plans, and then we get the guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
But the idea here is for Big Valley to work with the architects to make sure everything they're doing on paper and in computer is actually buildable and constructible. So that's where the guys who would be in the field actually trying to build something can say, hey, that's not going to work. We won't be able to do that. We actually toured a facility where it was supposed to have, and a good example is of something that hopefully this CMGC would catch, is there was supposed to be a forklift passage through a building, through a space between 2 fleet maintenances, and they built just a standard door, and so a forklift doesn't fit through. They worked around it. It actually worked out better for them in the end for what they needed. But those are the kind of things we're trying to avoid, something that you build and you don't have to retrofit something, or
Mhm.
we lose some sort of functionality because it can't be built. But this gets us to the guaranteed maximum price, and the guaranteed maximum price is required before we can pursue COPs to fund the building. That's one of the requirements, is having that guaranteed maximum price.
Okay.
Any more questions for Big Valley?
I'd like to make a resolution to approve 2026-0104 contract with Big Valley for the pre-construction design of the Public Works facility.
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Exciting.
I'd like just to say thank you to Paul and his crew and to Merrick and all these guys. Did a terrific job doing really intense interviews, going and visiting multiple public works facilities, figuring out what they did right, what they did wrong, and just demonstrating a really good process. That's kudos to Paul. That's kudos to Greg. Great job. I just thought it was a really, really well demonstrated process to really vet who we really want to work with for these very expensive projects. So congrats to Big Valley Construction. But you know, I think to some degree they were put through the ringer, and everybody was, and they had some really good options to choose from, and it was not an easy decision.
Yeah.
So just want to say thanks to Paul and the team for really just demonstrating a good process for selecting this general contractor.
Big Valley does good work. I think about that new fire station by the ski area. It's beautiful. Turned out great.
This is a foundational block to the future of Fraser.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Still up here.
All righty.
Public Works 2025 year-end selling all item. Right.
All right, Mayor Board of Trustees would like to just run through just a brief couple slides to show what we did in this last year on our CIP projects. With PowerPoint. So this is the capital projects recap. So some of the projects we did, we had Clayton Court. So we had the water main construction, which is the project we did over the winter at the start of 2025. So I don't ever want to do that again, to be honest, trying to install deep wets in January and February. A lot of utilities coordination. So a lot of work with the MPEI, Excel, the streetscape design and bid. We had the sidewalks on Norgren and Eisenhower, and then street select locations, for example, in front of Camber, and some work over by the rec center. We had the town hall improvements, which are finally finished as of last week. Church renovation with some punch list items left. South Wapiti culvert rehab, Elk Ranch Road interconnect valve, and the Quail water main loop. So we'll start with Clayton Court. As you can see here, in the orange, we installed a new 6-inch raw water main. And the reason for doing this was to give Fraser Valley Arts the most buildable area they could possibly have. Previously, the water line continued down and went up the northern property line, or the left side of the screen. And that would have left a large easement that they wouldn't have been able to build on. And then they would have still had what we were requesting for the trail access there between Strom and Fraser Valley for the Arts. And then in yellow are the new 8-inch water mains that we installed. We didn't add the add alternate to bring the water line up there past Denver Health to fix that line. I believe I've come to the board for approval on 2 emergency repairs on that line in my 3 years here. So it needed to be fixed. And we also were able to straighten out some of the weird jogs and bends that were in that water line from the way it was installed previously. And we were able to upsize it from a 6-inch to an 8-inch to better serve what we were trying to do in downtown.
That's great.
This is the current design for the utilities. We have agreements with Excel. We've actually just at the last meeting approved that contract with them for them to install that new gas main. I believe it's a 4-inch new main that will run from Clayton Avenue all the way up to Doc Susie. And then there was a meeting today between Merrick and MPEI on running new 3-phase power. So this would all be buried within Fraser Avenue and Clayton Court. And then it would also provide new 3-phase to Denver Health, and then a new 3-phase for the well house. Currently, the well house is supplied by 3-phase power that is coming off of the power pole next to Sharky's. So it's currently at the meter is at Sharky's. It is then buried, goes under Highway 40, runs along kind of where you guys have, some of you have seen the Centrum site, and then goods to our well house. So this would alleviate all of that underground line. We could abandon that line in place and then just have a new 3-phase there. It doesn't show up well on that, but there will be the fast chargers will be at the end of Clayton Avenue, up near where the trail starts for the Fraser River Trail and what used to be the Walkthrough History Park. Clayton Court Streetscape, we had the design bid completed in 25. We've gone to contract with, we've awarded a contract to Phase Concrete, working on finalizing the contract for signatures. The anticipated start date is mid-May to June. That is to allow Excel to get in and put their gas main in April. Then we would start that. And then you can see the sidewalk that out west installed in front of Strom, and that's what the sidewalks will look like throughout Clayton Court.
So the extension down Clayton Court, is that strong? Is that something that's going to be, will happen as it develops, as we get more buildings in down there, or is that?
So everything currently is going to be constructed except the sidewalk at the J&L property. We do not, haven't acquired that right away yet. We're
Okay,
still in negotiations with that property owner, but we have, we've acquired the right of way. We already had the right of way in front of Strom. We've acquired the right of way in front of Emall and Clayton, and Fraser Downtown LLC is starting the process to get us the needed easements there.
okay, so we'll have the sidewalk and then it'll tie into the street at the same time, or is this sidewalk gonna be exposed on either side for people to drive over and cars to
Well, it's
pulling out of the existing?
it's a thickened sidewalk it's designed to be driven over those points
Okay.
because ultimately we had hoped that we would know what was going in, but we don't.
Okay.
Everything is stalled after Strom at this point,
Mhm.
and we needed to get this project finished. It's been started for 2 years now. So.
Okay. And funding, we still have that?
Yeah, we still have funding. We improved in the budget to finish this project.
Yeah. Let's take those
So,
applications.
the contract is a 90-day substantial completion and then 120 days final. So it'll be done, should be done by September, October,
Okay,
barring any crazy late season weather. The Norgren Sidewalk projects, which obviously everybody was well aware of as it came down right here through Old Town. We were able to add the piece there. You could see it at the top right. We were able to finally connect the sidewalk between the Shell station and the EMS that had been dirt all those years in front of Fraser Beer Co. So we were able to get that done. We were able to get redo that drainage spot right there at Leonard and Eisenhower. Did run into a few hiccups with some valves and the current situation there at as you leave the school, the cross pan. And so the sheriff is having to park on the sidewalk to keep people from using the sidewalk to not hit that V-pan. So we'll be looking at maybe moving the V-pan or shallowing that V-pan to prevent some of that, and then looking at some bollards, but need to not affect streets crew being able to access the attachments in the alley. But as you can see, we did that was on the left is the existing entry there between Camber and the winery. And then on the right is the new work that was done with a new standard driveway apron on that sidewalk. Town hall improvements, we now have the ADA compliant ramp and entrance, the snow shedding roof gable. As a bonus, we were able to abate some asbestos that was up there. There's the new handrail, there was some new paving, and as you saw, as you came in tonight, we have the canopy that was installed and finished last Wednesday. On the church renovation, I'm not sure how many people have been in there and seen that, but despite our couple of punch list items, it looks pretty good. I think the cabinets look amazing. We just got to get a dishwasher in there. But there were structural roof upgrades to bring it to current code. That was done prior to us being able to do this. The code changed, so we had that done. We have code compliant water service entrances, a custodial closet, storage area, a new ADA bathroom, and a new entrance foyer. The Quail Drive water loop. Board members may have gotten some complaints as this project was going. The whole purpose of this project was, prior to this project, the only way to work on anything over there was to shut down all of Ptarmigan to not have water and all of Wapiti Meadows. So we put in a new cross there near the Blue Zone water treatment plant that allows us to be able to shut some water off in certain areas. Up there at Fox Lane, there'll be a fire hydrant installed. The contractor was not able to get to that this season, so the plan is they will come back next season. And if they decide not to come back, we already own all the parts and materials so that we can hire somebody else to do it. We were unable to acquire an easement along that property line right there that you see in time for the project to happen. And so as we're continuing to look at phase 2, there's some thoughts of going up the existing sanitary easement on the east side of that corner property to make that work better. But you can see the crews there with the shoring boxes. You can see the dewatering hose coming out there at the bottom of the screen to make sure we're keeping that dry. We then had the South Wapiti culvert. So if you could see the culvert there, most people aren't going to be able to see that, but there's no bottom in those culverts. CDOT had red flagged or had medium flagged this prior to my start. And in 23, my first year, they red flagged this and said we had to fix it. They gave us time with our short building season to move into design in 24. And the solution was to do a temporary fix, not knowing what we want to do in that area for connectivity to the light and sort of this weird jog that you have there at South Wapiti. So we went with grouting to fill the voids. So you can see where they dammed up on the top left. They're blocking off flow into that pipe so they can add the grout in the holes in the pipe and in the back. On the bottom, we used a concrete mat. So they affix that mat above where the erosion is, and then they water it down and it hardens into concrete. So it ends up looking like a concrete pipe at the bottom. And they grouted and re-rip wrapped the inlet side. And you can see how the mat is working there in the top right and in the bottom right.
Interesting.
And then the Elk Ranch Road PRV project. So this is located right at Oxbow and Elk Ranch Road. And the purpose was to provide an emergency, a way for emergency flow to happen between the south blue water zone, which is in the Maryville water right, and the north blue zone, which is in the town's historic water right. And this allows us to separate the systems, but in an emergency, the valve will open and allow water to flow. So say there was a fire or we lost pressure in the north blue zone, water can flow from the south blue zone. And in the bottom right, you have the PRV that controls the separation between blue zone and the yellow zone, which is a higher elevation. So there you can see kind of what we put in the ground. The big lead item on this project was the bottom right there. That blue item there was the long lead item. But they did a good job. They got out there. You can see the shoring boxes, and they got in and they got out. I believe it was a 2-week job, Greg. So they installed that, got everything, got the road put together in 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
And that is the
That's
end of
important.
the projects we did this year. So
We've been looking for that for
Fresh.
20 years.
any questions? Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right. All the getting's good.
Pressure decent out. Well, the faucets from blowing out. So.
Bye, fellas. Yeah, take care. Yeah, those are awesome.
And they'll reduce that down to like.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you all.
Bye. A lot of pressure. Slamming around these.
Recap, Garrett. We were starting to invest.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Garrett Scott, Town Planner. So this is a bit of a rehash of a presentation that was given to the Planning Commission in November. But staff just thought it'd be a good idea to provide the board with similar information and also present the full, 2025 calendar year worth of data as it relates to activities in the planning department. So this presentation will touch on building permits, land use applications, the status of various approved projects, amendments that staff made to our land development code this year, the discussion and engagement that we had related to the update of our comprehensive plan, and then a brief look ahead to staff's work plan for 2026. So starting off with building permits, in total in 2025, there were 89 building permits processed in the town of Fraser. A majority of those were for residential uses, 13 for commercial, and a very small number, only 6, were for completely new construction projects. The vast majority of these permits were for things like re-roofs or additions or exterior remodels of existing structures. So this is actually a pretty big deviation from previous years, where in 2024, that ratio was 29 new construction permits versus 47 alterations. And in 2023, we actually had more new construction permits at 44 as compared to 36 alterations or additions. So I'll provide some additional thoughts on that later, but just kind of an interesting trend looking back at the past couple years. In terms of total permit volume, we did exceed the past 2 years by a good amount, and you can see how that varied throughout the calendar year for 2023, 24, and 25. This graph shows permit valuation by month and the total figures for 23, 24, and 25 there on the right. So 2025 did represent a pretty significant year in terms of permitted valuation of structures now under construction in Fraser. The main things that are driving that this year are the Spring Hill Suites Hotel and Rendezvous, Phase 1 of St. Louis Landing, specifically buildings C and E, which are now under construction, as well as actually the interior remodel of Safeway. That was a pretty significant permit valuation project that didn't even come through the planning office. It just went straight to building permit. Just some additional thoughts, so of those 6 new construction permits, 3 of them are those significant projects that I mentioned, St. Louis Landing, Building C and E, and the Spring Hill Suites Hotel. So this year, or in 2025, we only had 3 new single-family residential units permitted in Fraser, which I think is maybe somewhat anomalous, and I just have a couple thoughts on that. One, I think it is kind of indicative of a transition out of maybe the COVID boom period in building. Certainly, home prices in the Fraser Valley are correlated strongly with those in the Front Range, and home prices have kind of declined to stagnated over the past couple of years. So that could be a reason why residential construction is somewhat leveling off. But another thing I'll also add is that phase 2 of the Mill Avenue apartments did break ground this year. They received building permits through Grand County, even though they are directly adjacent to Fraser. They're served by our municipal water and wastewater system. And that represents 60 new permitted residential units that you could argue are, in Fraser, but not really. So, I think the bigger picture is that there's still a lot of approved residential projects in Fraser that if given if market conditions, do improve in terms of home pricing or things like that, certainly there could be a lot of movement this year and years beyond. So speaking to land use applications that we received this year, we had a total of 15. The slight majority of those were administrative, non-public hearing, non-board approval applications. 7 were completely administrative. 3 applications were sketch plans that were brought to the Planning Commission for discussion. And then there were 5 other applications that we received this year that will ultimately make their way through the Planning Commission and board. Some have, others are still under review at this time. So for the board's information, the Planning Commission reviewed 4 different sketch plans this past year. They included Centrum, which is the next planned development on the southern end of Clayton Court in our Riverwalk Zone District. 2 sketch plans in the Grand Park area, which include West Mountain Filing 2, as well as Planning Area 2W.3, and then a sketch plan for Meyer Lot 1, which is the kind of quarter circle wedge-shaped lot in between County Road 72, the railroad, and Elk Creek Drive. In terms of land use applications that the board saw this year, there were 4. Starting off with the Spring Hill Suites Hotel that was approved in January, Grand Park West Mountain Filing 1, which was also approved in January, and then a site plan and final plat for the Ascent, which is the redevelopment of the ski broker exports property and a new residential building adjacent to it, and then the final plat for the Village at Grand Park, Filing 3. So next, speaking to major projects, starting with projects that were completed or nearly completed last year. The Middle Park Health Fraser Medical Center officially opened to the public last June, which is really exciting and a great amenity, certainly for those living or visiting the Fraser Valley. And Strom Townhomes, the first development on Clayton Court proper in the Riverwalk Zone District. Certificates of occupancy were issued for the 4 townhome units late last year, and the commercial building shown here up at the front of the street is nearing completion and should receive a CO soon. Next, speaking to projects that are under construction, the Market Street buildings, a lot of progress was made on them this past year, and construction activity is continuing. The core and shell of these buildings are estimated to be complete early this year by April. I'll also note that these pictures are from November, so if you've driven by, this site or the next ones, it's easy to see some of the progress that's been made in our unseasonably warm conditions this winter, but silver lining is that they're, favorable construction conditions,
Yeah,
certainly.
it's great. It's looking good.
Yeah, and the Spring Hill Suites Hotel is next. Again, a lot of progress made on this property since just November, with it now basically topping out and reaching its final elevation, I believe, and them installing windows. That is estimated to be complete in about a year from now. And then St. Louis Landing Phase 1, approved by you all, the board, in July of 24. Again, good progress made even just since this picture in November. And then one other project that did get kicked off late last year after our presentation to the Planning Commission is Elk Creek Condos 4W.1 in Grand Park. The developer executed a development improvements agreement with the town in December that allows for the water and wastewater infrastructure for this site to be installed. So they've been proceeding with that through the favorable weather conditions this winter. And then speaking to projects that have gone through the board approval process and are in kind of the known pipeline, if you will, of development in the future. Starting with Riverview Condos, this is just off Highway 40, adjacent to the fly fishing shop and Grand Valley Flooring Store. This development was actually approved by the board almost 6 years ago in April of 2020. However, the plat was recorded soon after approval, and the property owner has maintained an active development improvements agreement with the town. So, planning staff would allow a development proposal that's consistent with that recorded plat to proceed if that is what happens. Another approved project that's just awaiting construction is the Ascent Condominiums, which was approved by the board in April of last year. Staff is working with the applicant to finalize their plat and site plan. And this development is also served by some of the same infrastructure as Grand Park 4W.1, which is under construction right now.
Hey, Garrett, so I forget, what's the time frame once a project's approved like that? What is their time frame for having to get started and show significant completion, or how's that work?
Yeah, great question. So in the case of the Ascent, because this isn't a standard zone district in the town, it's not in our PD districts. The way it was processed is that it has to have its site plan finalized and its plat recorded within 1 year. So for the Ascent, the applicant is coming up pretty close to that, given that it was approved last April, but they still have some time to finalize those details. They are able to request an extension by the board if necessary. And generally speaking, after a plat is recorded, there must be an approved site plan in place in order for an applicant to pull a building permit and proceed with construction of the property. But typically that happens quickly. If you have an approved site plan, typically you go to pull that building permit fairly soon. Backing up to Elk Creek Condos, just as an example, because developments in our planned development zones are processed slightly differently in terms of that duration of approval. So in this case, the final plat and FPDP for this development were approved back in July of 2023. Town staff worked with the applicant to record the FPDP in October of 2024. So a little bit more than a year later. And the developer was allowed to build infrastructure under that development improvements agreement. The next step is recording plats for these lots. And because the way this was platted as multiple lots to be built in a phased manner, our code currently allows for a 5-year period for the property owner to record those plats. So because this was approved in July of 2023, those plats could be recorded as late as 2028.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And then after that, building permits can be pulled and
Okay.
the property can be built on.
All right.
A couple other projects in the pipeline that have gone through the board approval process. West Mountain Filing 1 in Grand Park. this will actually come back to the board for reapproval early this year, as the applicant has made some additional tweaks and modifications that trigger the need for an additional public hearing. So this, while it's approved, there are some minor changes that require it to come back to the board. So you all will see this soon. Alpenglow, which is planning area 2W in Grand Park, is also a project that has been approved but has just laid dormant for the time being. And then last but not least, the Village at Grand Park, which is planning area 1WA, which was FPDP was approved by the board in November of 2024 and the final plat approved April of last year. And staff is working with the applicant to finalize and record that FPDP here soon, likely the first quarter of this year. So certainly a lot of projects in the pipeline, a lot of residential units that could be built in the future, and other uses as well.
Can you go back to that last slide?
Sure.
Stick out the village. What's the piece that's got the foot L parking to the right of the wetlands? Yeah, what is that? And has that been approved?
This has been approved as part of the FPDP. Conceptually speaking, I should say. A lot of the building footprints here as part of this FPDP are more conceptual in nature. We
Okay.
don't have final building elevations or interior floor
Okay.
plans.
So-
But this was approved for a 90-room hotel
Okay.
lodging use
Yeah.
on this property. Certainly, if a development proposal materializes for this site or any of the other lots in the village filing 3, any commercial or lodging use would require approval by the board.
So right at this point, if it wasn't there, that would still be in the area that's under litigation with our or potentially for the conservation easement.
I mean, Garrett, can you, I believe that is an approved planning area on the 2005 PDD. So that's,
Okay.
and that's outside the areas that
Great.
we'll be negotiating for a conservation easement.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's an approved area. The hotel, those lots just next to the rec center, those are also in approved planning areas as well.
Yeah, I guess just to better orient ourselves, this is Highway 40 along the south side. So north is off to the right here.
Yeah.
And this is Grand Park Drive.
So we got the rec center, and then the strip is the right of way in the wetlands with the dotted lines.
And
right?
then to the right is the Alpenglow condos that have been approved. So there will be buildings that basically go right up to that potential hotel that have all been approved.
Between the rec center parking lot.
No.
Just I don't know if you can read the words up in the top right, but that's all Alpenglow condos.
Yeah, well, this is it. Oh, gotcha. Okay. So other than those, so this is taking me to another question. So Alpenglow condos, that spot, that's in an already approved zone. But do we have to consider any other applications in the land that's under question for the conservation easement?
My answer is no, and our legal team has strong backing with that. So in the event that an application is submitted, and I've communicated this to Garrett as well, if an application is submitted for areas that do contemplate a conservation easement, then they will receive a letter from our attorney stating why we will not be processing that land use
good.
application.
Great.
Until a
just don't wanna-
conservation easement, the boundaries and the inclusions are agreed or otherwise ruled on by Judge Hope.
Okay.
I think just to close the loop on this and clarify, this dashed line here is the Leland Creek floodplain.
Mhm.
And then this hatched area are wetlands associated with the creek. And everything around this is shown as open space. So, town staff worked with Grand Park very extensively and our planning commission and board as well through 2024 to arrive at this FPDP that is, in staff's opinion, wholly consistent with the 2005 Grand Park PDD and consistent with the areas to be placed in the conservation easement.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Great discussion. So town staff did make 5 different code amendments to Chapter 19, our Land Development Code, this year. Those included a few different items related to affordable housing, starting with allowing accessory dwelling units in our low-density single-family zone districts as a permitted use by right instead of a conditional use. In July of last year, we tweaked our existing density bonus provisions to make them more attractive and also expanded them into the business and high-density multifamily zone districts. We added some light short-term rental regulations for properties that have an accessory dwelling unit that was approved in August. Last November, the board approved a prohibition on non-functional turf in compliance with a state law. And just last December, we approved some use regulations pertaining to vehicle sales and outdoor storage. At near the end of last year in October, staff also had some discussion with the Planning Commission around a fast track review process that the town needs to implement to remain compliant for and eligible for additional funding through Proposition 123 with the state. So that's something that staff will look to implement early this year, and it will come to the board in the first half of this year. And we will also continue discussion around potential modifications to residential uses being allowed in our business zone district, which we kind of initiated near the end of last year. Staff will be picking that back up early this year. In terms of activities related to the comprehensive plan update, town staff and our consultant partners did quite a few things last year. In total, 11 different meetings with you all, our planning commission, and our DDA board were held in 2025, as well as 2 open houses, one in March and another in late July, that were held at the recreation center and had pretty good attendance and engagement with the public. We will have a final draft of the comprehensive plan available and reviewed by the Planning Commission next Wednesday, and a possible recommendation of adoption, and could bring it to the board as soon as this February if we stay on that schedule.
Can you get that to us in the board? Can you get that to us in the board packet before the weekend?
Yes.
Because it's a lot of pages.
Yes, it is. So I will add
Thank
that,
you.
know, the planning commission reviewed the plan in November.
Yeah.
There was good feedback from the planning commission and some good feedback from the public as well through that online survey we had. Substantially, the plan is obviously not changing, but staff will be sure to highlight what has changed from November.
Right.
And talk through it. And certainly if the planning commission wants additional time to review it, recognizing that you'll have the plan the Friday before the planning commission meeting.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's
Thank
always
you.
an option, but
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna adopt it, we should be able to read it.
yes, agreed.
Thank you.
And I think regardless of whether the planning commission chooses to advance it to the board next Wednesday or spend an additional month and continue that public hearing, staff will anticipate a workshop with the board in February to review the comprehensive plan with this body, given that it was just the planning commission who saw it in November and certainly want you all to have eyes on it as well and time to discuss with staff.
Right.
Lastly, just a look ahead to a big laundry list of items to look forward to in 2026. A lot of the ones kind of in the first half of this list are a bit more concrete. Again, things like the comprehensive plan adoption early this year, that fast track review process for affordable housing development that I mentioned. Before April of this year, we'll be adopting the state's wildfire resiliency code, and we'll also make some conforming amendments to our landscaping code. So look forward to that early this year. And we'll have discussions and a code amendment around school land dedication and fee in lieu, public works facility, which was just discussed earlier this meeting. We've received the kind of site plan application for that. So that will be making its way through the planning commission and board approval process early this year. And then kind of the second half of this list is kind of a unorganized list of items that subject to, the planning commission and board identifying priorities for staff, various items identified through the comprehensive plan process as kind of things that staff should tackle first. So more affordable housing strategies, possible changes to our development fee schedule, review processes, things like architectural design standards, incentivizing, activation of the Fraser River in the Riverwalk Zone District, discussion around downtown parking and, activating the Fraser Mobility Hub, transit hub by the rail station. So lots of things to look forward to next year.
I have a
Yes.
question about the wildfire resiliency. Are we looking at trying to make ours a little bit more stronger than the state? Or are we just gonna adopt the state?
Yeah, so I think in terms of at least the structure hardening aspect of the code, because that's a building code regulation, in discussion with, Town of Winter Park staff at the building division. At this time, at least, we're looking to just adopt the model code as it relates to structures. But in terms of landscaping, things like defensible space and non-combustible, vegetation and materials around structures, that's something that would live under our landscaping regulations in our land development code. And I do believe that there's an opportunity to be more stringent than the state requirement if the planning commission and board would
Why
like
don't
to pursue
you
that route.
add that to your list there for exam? Throw that on there. That-
Yeah,
Just
well,
another dot.
yeah, well, this is meant to be encompassed by this bullet here.
Okay.
But yes.
So another thing that I think we ought to consider, and I don't know, I'm seeing the dead density by these developers is now we have setbacks that appear like they're maybe 5 feet. So they're 10 feet between houses, and I think the Palisade fire was evidence that it wasn't just landscaping, all that contributed to it, but the heat of the building next door could ignite the building on right next door just because it was so close. And maybe we want to look at setbacks from an overall community.
Well, the only place we have small setbacks is in the business district, right?
No, I mean, Rendezvous Winter Park, I mean, these houses
Yeah,
are,
they're very close.
you know,
Next to me is like 5 feet away.
Yeah.
True.
and that's, and you're gonna see that in Grand Park too,
Mhm.
because they make more money if they get them closer together.
Right.
Something to look at, for sure.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Let them sprinkle them all.
Well, that's not,
No, I
that's
know.
not gonna help,
I think
Katie.
that's what it is. There's a wildfire. So.
It's the fences.
That's what they don't say.
Fences.
They go right up to the house.
Yeah.
They're a wooden
Okay.
fence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Very good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Very informative.
Yeah.
All right, updates. We'll start with the one on the agenda, drainage concerns response. Paul?
Mayor, Board of Trustees, just wanted to come tonight to give an update on some of the drainage concerns that were raised, I believe, at the first December meeting by the public regarding town projects. Contractors that work for the town are required to acquire all permits needed to complete a project. So section 1.1.1 of our Public Works construction contract. It's the general, it includes mobilization, demobilization, bonds and insurance, third-party materials testing, subcontractor erosion and sediment control, traffic control, and construction dewatering. So the town does not issue those permits. The dewatering and the erosion control, stormwater pollution prevention plans or SWIPs are issued by CDPHE. So they submit a plan to CDPHE, who approves on their dewatering, their erosion control, their stormwater pollution prevention plans, and they sign off on that. Town staff does, observe those. Over the last 2 years, we have had members of the public come in and complain. One time they were complaining about water that was being drained out of what's called a Baker tank, which is where all the water gets pumped into a tank and it has several baffles and filters. The water coming out, the outfall end is clean, so they were seeing that pipe. Another one, a discharge hose had come disconnected from the sediment bag. So there have been some issues but we're there within 2-3 hours and everything is rectified. Some examples that you'll see around on the projects of erosion and sediment control would be silt fencing. So that's the black fencing that's on stakes that you'd see around a property sometimes. More common around here is the erosion control logs. So the coconut, 8-inch coconut logs about 10 feet long. You see them out on St. Louis Landing, where the town would put snow. You see it on a lot of projects. The sediment bags, which are the big black bags that fill up and water's coming out of them, but it's catching sediment on the inside. And the last is the Baker dewatering tanks. I don't know if you guys can remember back to 2023 during the sewer project. There was the big blue tank out here on Leonard that sat along the railroad tracks. That's a Baker tank. Just some examples of some of the projects we've done. So since 2020, from 2023 to 2025, the town has paid $543,000 in erosion control and dewatering devices on our projects. Some of the smaller ones, so the Elk Ranch Road Interconnect, the one we showed right there at Elk Ranch and Oxbow, we paid $37,000 for dewatering into that sediment bag, and the erosion control logs to make sure water wasn't getting into Elk Creek at that point. But on the big projects, for example, the St. Louis Landing utilities that went in spring through the fall of 2025, we've spent $153,000 on erosion control and dewatering. Lions Ponds bathrooms, we spent $44,000. Byers Avenue water main, as the Katies know, there was a lot of work going on there. We spent $126,000 on that tank that sat on Leonard. And then on the sewer main replacement, we spent $165,000. So the town is very concerned about erosion and sediment making it into the creeks and the rivers. So I just wanted to bring this update showing that we have been doing our due diligence, and those permits are required by our contracts and they're issued and enforced by the state. So.
How'd that study go that Adam was working on with you in terms of studying the drainage patterns all around?
So we have it
town,
all.
what needs to-
We're trying to create the work orders now for street staff to do the easy work, open up pipes, open up inlets, clean things. So we're working through that to kind of push through that. I know that Andy's group, UC Wet, along with our biologists, are going to be presenting, I think, on the 21st, just to try and get public engagement and notification of what you're doing. Don't change your oil right next to the drainage pan, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Again, if any member of the board has concerns about erosion, please let me know, and myself or Brad will be out there and be on those contractors. But if you drive down Quail, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some stored materials, and everything along the river is surrounded by silt fence at this point. I was worried about snow and runoff, but obviously it doesn't look like it's.
So is that a new well that's getting installed right across the creek there by the off of that Quail? If you're on the Fraser River Trail.
The pile of dirt and rock?
Yeah,
That's
they've been out there digging and just on the
Right,
other side of the creek.
currently?
Well, a month ago.
No, that was the water line, the Quail loop.
Oh,
water line.
gotcha. Okay.
So that's leftover stored material we're holding over the winter for
Okay.
completing the project of the fire hydrant on Fox that currently
Okay,
doesn't.
so that's that water line loop.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
How many pumps were in that trench?
I would say TFW
Yeah.
ran 3 or 4 point wells. They were very concerned. They ran some large pumps.
I would imagine.
But the big dewatering was on Byers and the sewer project. It was just there was a lot of water. I think it was a high groundwater year. But Clayton Court, I think we paid Clayton Court. We negotiated a lump sum of $18,000. We asked the contractor if they were confident in that. I'm pretty sure the contractor spent $100,000 in dewatering.
Wow.
Just because the water was high, we knew it, so they didn't make that mistake on St. Louis. They got it right.
That's all.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of things. crosswalk beacons are now functioning at Robert Fisher's crosses over.
All right.
So thanks to our street operators team to get that done. That's a wonderful thing to have back in place and a good safety measure.
That's good. Thank you.
I will be out next week along with Peggy and Brian and Sarah. Be heading down to that CAS conference. We'll be discussing essentially everything that we want to discuss related to affordable housing, childcare challenges. I think even transit was on there as well, and be touring some different types, a modular manufacturing facility as well as a 3D printing
Awesome.
housing facility, manufacturing facility there to see what the latest trends are for constructing affordable housing. So that'll be Wednesday through Friday. So we'll be out of pocket.
Wonderful.
for
We
those
need
days.
a small industry here so that we don't have to rely completely on sales tax.
Is
Planning
planning
that.
commission? wanting to-
Planning commission's an issue.
Yeah,
Because that's the 28th, right?
it's
then-
that Wednesday, yep.
So you guys should still have a quorum, I believe.
Yeah.
Just want to check too, those of you on,
Maybe not.
Yeah, because Joy's not.
Joy's
Yeah,
not
because
here.
Joy's out,
There.
unless we can appoint a new member
And
before that
Bob
meeting.
Genosi, I think, was closing on a house at least he was at the title company the other day.
Yeah, but he bought a place in, I think, Oak Creek condos. So he's still in Fraser.
Joy. she
Joy,
has
well,
to
Joy
go.
McCoy, but then the two of us will be in Salida.
6 minus 2, still 4. Right?
Sounds like you're somebody zooming.
That's still 4, isn't it?
As long as all four of us-
As long as all 4 show up.
And Bob, has he sold his place yet? Because Bob was gonna be moving. Did you know that?
You understand Bob got another house.
Oh, did he? Changed his mind. Loves it
Yeah.
too much here. I hope he stays.
Just went to a condo instead.
Garrett, can you touch base with
Yeah.
those 4 planning commissioners and confirm their attendance for that meeting?
I have sent them.
Thank
Great.
you.
Just now. It's like, huh? Hey there. Perfect. He's on it. We love this guy.
Maybe we
You
drive
got
around
great
that night,
staff.
think about maybe.
Great staff.
And just want to make sure that
Dinner.
all the representatives on the GFOC, have you guys gotten the meeting invites for the meetings for this year? We're having some
We haven't
issues with
seen
Outlook
anything
and I just
yet,
want to
I don't
confirm
Yeah, like you sent them all, right?
for the
Didn't you?
GFOC meetings.
Yeah,
Did you get one?
Brian, you received that?
I thought so. Didn't you send out like the whole year's worth or something?
I sent out the ones for MFC, don't
Okay.
look at in those.
It's the same,
February.
whatever it is, the
Schedule.
second
Second
month.
month, second day.
That's great.
12.
Yeah, same schedule,
So you don't have it either.
No, I guess I'm not.
same schedule.
Yeah, we'll need to take a look at that. I don't think they have it.
Good.
We're just, yeah, ever since, was it Windows 11 upgrade? We've been having some challenges with,
We had the wrong calendar up.
You know, what was interesting on
Oh, yeah.
the article about the breweries. One thing that we haven't really talked to the community about is how much it would cost us to do that additional work, the millions and millions of dollars, right? 40 million, is it, to upgrade the plant?
to
To be
when you
able
say
to,
upgrade the plant, you mean to add the IPP portion of that?
yeah, whatever, to make it so we could process the
To add
material.
that commercial component, I think it's between 15 to 20 million to
Okay.
address that.
That's
That's a big
important.
number.
It is important and
That's
we've
an important
provided that
thing for
information
the
in the
community
past.
to know.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
because it's not like, oh, well, it's just this plant, you know, and you can't,
Is
you
it just
can't
like-
handle it. And that's a lot of money, and that's every person that lives within those districts is gonna have to kick in a lot of money for it.
yeah, and I actually conveyed that too in the interview and I don't think that made it in.
Yeah, I didn't see it in there,
But,
which is too bad,
Um,
the cost of having to upgrade the.
But
plant
yeah,
for it.
it's I was reached out to about that and yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, I know, it's frustrating, and I don't blame them for being frustrated.
Well, and it's
They got
becoming
the okay when there should have been parameters from the beginning, but the town failed in that, so.
yeah, and
Mhm.
you know, with the new draft permit in hand too, we have much more stringent requirements than we've had in the past. So
Yeah.
they absolutely want to see an industrial pretreatment program implemented.
Yeah.
And with control and monitoring in place,
Mm-hmm.
even without, you know, any violations that we've had in the past, just because
Oh, the new permit says that too?
It does. So
Oh,
they're requiring
okay.
that, make sure that we have that IPP program in place. And in addition to several other requirements that we're trying to negotiate where it makes sense to maybe look at some things being increased or decreased.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, good.
But working through that process still with the draft permit for the plant.
Okay.
That's all I have.
I've got an update. I think you guys are mostly aware that about 2 years ago, maybe longer, I asked for a speed study to be done through Fraser. It was completed and the report is finalized and they're going to reduce our speed to 30 miles per hour
Oh, yay.
through town and 45. Well, so it says 30 in Winter Park and Fraser and 45 miles per hour in between, which I'm assuming is the Grand Park. flats.
Wonderful.
So
To me, it's
Great.
the like the
Thank you,
Grand Park
Brian.
flats, like where it's 55 now.
It's gonna be 45.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes 45 to 55. Back down
So
45 down to
I
30.
wanted
So
Trustee Gregory to be here because I think that'll cut down on Jake breaking, but he didn't show up. So, but yeah, that's big news.
no, it is great
30
news.
miles per hour. So, I only asked for the study from a specific mile marker that cuts into Winter Park just a little bit on the north end. So I don't know if they stretched it through the town of Winter Park or if it's just going to go down to 30 there.
Okay.
But at least through Fraser, it's going to be 30.
That's
Do
wonderful.
you know how far it will be? When will 30 start? Will that be on? Because I know they have problems. A lot of County Road 8 problems start because of that 55-mile-an-hour sign is right there and they see it and they accelerate. So people can't get out of County Road 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
So
ask
is
that
that-
question. Yeah.
Do you think it will
I'm
be? to
guessing
County
it'll
Road 8?
still be 45 at the fire station. But then at the other end, I don't know. From the fire station on.
Yeah, but she's talking north end of town here.
Ah.
North and north end, like
Once they get
Yeah,
out of town.
I'll ask.
start.
30 miles an hour. If I come, I get off.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially since we have a stoplight there. I mean, that could be a good way to help mitigate that.
Right.
Weird.
Okay.
All right. Any other updates?
That's good. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
I.
Opposed?